The best part about doing reviews is the discovery process. I'm learning about the product. In this case, the Cambridge EX A100. The good, the bad, and just learning what it is. You know, as I unboxed it, I'm looking at this thing thinking, it's so matter of fact, you know, it's not flashy, it doesn't have a lot of lights and buttons, and it's very clean. The look of it is very clean, uncluttered, but in fact it is pretty feature packed. I mean, well, it is a Class AB amplifier. That's something that's noteworthy right up front, because I'm getting more and more Class D, which yes, runs cooler and is certainly cheaper to make and stuff. So when a company goes the extra mile and goes with a Class AB amplifier, I give them credit for that. Anyway, so it's got that. And when you look at the back panel, you see something you rarely see nowadays. It used to be a very common feature on receivers and integrated amps, is A/B speaker switching, meaning you can hook up 2 pairs of speakers to the A100. That's special and very useful for a lot of people. So I'm glad to point that out right up front. Now it is 100 watt per channel into 8 ohms, 155 watts a channel into 4 ohms. You know, I got to say this though. When I set it up and I started listening, I was a little concerned because the sound was kind of pale, you know? It just didn't have any get up and go. It was kind of lacking in life, seemed a little closed in. I thought, I don't know about this. But anyway, as I played music when I wasn't home, I just played music all the time. And after 50 or 60 or 70 hours, the sound transformed and was it's just a beautiful, I'd say it's a neutral to slightly warm sounding amplifier. Didn't sound that way at first, but luckily enough, as it mellowed out, it became way more interesting to me. Hey, I want you to take a look inside this amplifier. It's noteworthy on a couple of regards. It is an AB amplifier, I mentioned that earlier, and because of that it has a substantial toroidal power transformer, and the transformer is flanked by these very impressive heat sinks. And even with all of that heat sinking available for the output transistors, this amplifier ran, I would say, warm to the touch, which is fine. Definitely did not run hot, but it's not the kind of amp you would want to put in an enclosed cabinet where it wasn't getting any ventilation. So there's that. And the price is $2,399. Another number that's noteworthy is it has a 2-year warranty. Hey, let's take a look at the rear panel, and you will see it has 3 sets of RCA inputs and 1 set of XLR balanced inputs. There's stereo preamplifier outputs and a single subwoofer output, and that subwoofer output is filtered. It's low pass at 2.3K. I'd say the digital connectivity suite is rather generous. There is 1 coaxial input, 2 optical inputs, 1 USB. There's Bluetooth and also an HDMI ARC, which means you can integrate it with a TV. You use it in a 2-channel home theater system, or 2.1 channel if you use a subwoofer. One unusual feature is the power amp mode, which allows you to use the A100 strictly as a power amplifier with an external preamplifier. One common input that's missing is a phono input, moving magnet or moving coil. It's neither. It doesn't have any phono input, and I'm fine with that, because if you have a decent turntable, you probably want to get a good phono preamp, better than the one that's inside an integrated amplifier. I certainly would. I was surprised that there aren't any bass and treble controls or any kind of EQ option at all. The front panel itself doesn't have a display particularly. You know, usually you'd see on an integrated amp like this a display that has an indication of how loud the volume setting is. But there is none. Behind that black shiny midsection of the front panel, there's no actual display there. Oh, and as for knob feel, well, I don't know. I think, well, the knob itself is plastic, gray plastic. So the feel of the knob isn't so great, although turning the knob, the action is nice and smooth, but the touchy-feely part of it is not so impressive. No, not for a $2,400 integrated amplifier. And then the remote. The remote is plastic. It's a skinny plastic remote with lots and lots of buttons that you'll never use because it controls other Cambridge devices, other Cambridge components. But the volume control, the most used buttons on a remote are tiny buttons right there in the middle. As for my music selections, I started with this Bjork record, this CD that is, and I was playing it over my J's Audio CDT2 Mark II transport. It's a CD transport. Been my reference for many years now. So I took the coaxial output of the transport, went into the coaxial input on the A100, and I was a happy camper. It sounded really good. This music has real power to it, real grunt. And I was playing it loud, and I was using the Pure Audio Project Duet 15 speakers, so I'd have a high sensitivity speaker to listen to. But I also spent some time with the KEF LS50 Meta, which is pretty low sensitivity. I wanted to exercise those 100 watts with the KEF. Now I want to say right up front, I thought this combination of the transport and the A100 and the Pure Audio Project speakers, fantastic, really, really nice. But me being me, I was curious about comparing the sound of the built-in DAC, the A100's built-in Sabre DAC, to an external DAC that I was going to use. How would that compare? What would the difference be? And I used one of my old references, a Denafreps Aries, not even an Aries 2, an original Aries. It's got to be, I'd say, 5 or 6 years old at this point, but it's a really high quality unit. It sold for $700 or $800 when it was new, and it's fantastic. It's my go-to under $1,000 reference. Anyway, so I put that in, and I compared the built-in DAC to the Denafreps. And what did I hear? Well, it was no contest. The Denafreps DAC punched harder on the bottom. It was more open sounding. I could hear spaces between the instruments more clearly. The highs were more extended. It was pretty much a wash for the built-in DAC. It's not really so much a slight against the A100 because this is typical. Most built-in DACs on integrated amps of this price and even much higher, they're there as a convenience. Yes, it has a DAC. It sounds fine. I was perfectly happy listening to the built-in Sabre chip DAC. But if you're going to spend $2,400 on an integrated amp, I think you'd want to invest, and you listen mostly to digital, you'd probably want to invest in an external DAC, and it's obviously easy enough to do other than the additional cost. But again, that's true for, I think without exception, all integrated amps in this price range and even higher. I continued listening to CDs and streaming from my Bluesound Node 2i, but without the Denafreps DAC, with the built-in Sabre DAC. And I was a happy camper. It sounds really good. I was listening to this Ellington CD, and it's a small group, and it's just so intimate, and you hear Ellington communicating with the other musicians. It sounds really, really nice. I also played LPs with my Technics SL1200G and an Audiophiliac Cadenza Blue, and the phono preamp is a Quicksilver, US-made phono preamp. It's called the Quicksilver phono preamp. And yeah, when I was playing analog, it transformed the sound, again, as it should, as it would be revealing of the differences between analog and digital sources. And I had, no complaints listening to vinyl over the A100. Okay, and then, just to have fun, I decided I wanted to listen to the A100, but just as a preamplifier, and match it with one of my old references, which in this case is the Dynaco Stereo 70. And this exact one is about 60 years old. It was restored a few years ago by Novolux Stereophonic. They did great work. I'll tell you what I paid for it, $900. And it uses EL34 push-pull. tubes, power tubes. It sounds wonderful. It's a gorgeous sounding piece in a tubey way. It's warm, but it's got tonal color. It's just juicy sounding and rich sounding. And that combination of the A100 as a preamp and this tube power amp, really, really nice. And what I'm talking about here is that the flexibility of being able to change the sound of the A100 by using an external DAC and also a different power amp. It keeps it from wanting to sell stuff because you got to get a new thing to get a new sound. If you can change the sound of a component and basically to grow with it or just experiment with it, as I like to do, it's really, really nice to have that option. And also, yes, I used it with a solid state amp, the Pass XA25, Class A, 25 watt per channel, solid state amplifier. And that one had, real oomph to the sound. Fantastic. That's why the XA25 has been my reference for a really long time now. And anyway, again, more options to customize the sound of an A100. And last but not least, I did listen to headphones, my Audeze LCD3s, planar magnetic headphones. Not the easiest to drive, no problem. The A100 did a great job with the Audeze. And, headphones are not really my thing anymore, but what I love about listening with headphones is that you completely eliminate the room. Forget room treatment, there ain't no room. It's in your head, it sounds, you really can hear what's in a recording better than you will ever hear it over speakers. Now speakers have a lot going for them, but if you really want to know what's going on in a recording, headphones are the way to do it. Really good headphones, but even inexpensive headphones, well, $200 or $300 headphones, they do get around whatever problems you have in your room. Pop on headphones, maybe even just as a check. If you want to, understand what's going on in a recording, headphones are probably the best way to do it. All right, now I'm ready so Steve, what do you really think of the Cambridge Audio EX A100 integrated amplifier? I think it's kind of a mixed bag, but the catch is that it's so darn lovable. It just keeps trying to please. It's like a happy puppy or something, It's really an engaging sound, just take it on its own, using the DAC that's in it, listen to it as is, a la carte, so to speak. Yeah, it sounds really good with really high sensitivity speakers like the Pure Audio Projects or the low sensitivity speakers like the KEF LS50 Metas. I thought it was definitely up to the job, definitely. And now we can move right into, you love it, the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. Kurt sent in these photos, and this is quite a system. First of all, it's a surround system, and it uses MBL 101 speakers. These are German, very high-end omnidirectional speakers, and there's 4 top-of-the-line JL Audio subwoofers in this system. Amplifiers for the 2-channel part of the system are from Hagel, and the Marantz pieces power the surround system. The streamer is by Hi-Fi Rose. Stereo preamp is a Nelson Pass XPA 25, and the TV is a big-ass Sony. Oh, and power conditioning is by Inakustik, Germany, and there are 4 dedicated 20-amp lines directly powering the system. Thank you, Kurt. We are back. I want to thank you guys for watching. My name is Steve Guttenberg, and it's true, I am the Audiophiliac. If you dig the channel, if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, please consider checking out my Patreon. And there's a lot of pluses there that I can't go into right now. But anyway, it's definitely worth checking into. You could join for a couple of bucks a month, up to $50 or even $100 a month. The top 2 tiers, you and I will have a one-on-one conversation every month at the beginning of the month. Anyway, that's enough for today. My name is Steve Guttenberg again. Thank you again for watching, and I really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.